Wow. Thank you very much. It seems like not that long ago I was in your seats. I spent eight years about on this campus, in chapels, in the classrooms. And it's a little bit surreal being here right now. You know, I'd be a lot more nervous, actually. Can I leave this here? I'd be a lot more nervous. But my first sermon as a pastor helped me get over that. Who knows what happened in 2021? A lot of stuff happened. One of the things that happened is that 2021 is the year that Juneteenth became a federal holiday, right? And Juneteenth is also the year that I started pastoring. And it just so happened that my first sermon as a pastor was on June 19. I didn't grow up talking about race, and that's not what this sermon's about. But needless to say, I was nervous. I was really nervous. Coming into New York City, huge city, lots of wealth, lots of affluence, a very diverse city. And I was supposed to talk to them, to preach to them on this holiday. So I spent the week preparing, but I was still nervous. I stayed up all night, the night before the sermon, writing, revising, reading, preparing. I didn't drink anything. I didn't eat anything. And 15 minutes into my sermon, I passed out on stage. There was a podium just like this, a clear plexiglass. I fell onto it, knocked it off the stage, broke the podium, and I woke up underneath the piano. Wow. So I learned right off the bat that it's worth enjoying the process of preaching, even if you don't get everything right. So now whenever I'm nervous or worried, I have something to remember, to reinforce what really matters. But one of the reasons that I was worried and so stressed out about this first sermon was, one, race, was not comfortable talking about race. Two, was New York, prestigious place, powerful place. I was not used to talking to people in a place like that, much less being on stage and expected to share some words of wisdom. And this gets at the question that I want to ask today. We're doing a theme of service, right? And I think we have very clear ideas of what service means. But sometimes we find ourselves in a place where we want to serve, but we don't know how, because we don't actually know what the need is. So the question I want to ask today is, how do you serve people who don't need you? I'm actually really grateful for the team here, the chaplains. They've been great. I've already had multiple needs this morning. I have to thank the student chaplain. I didn't even get his name because this belt I'm wearing belongs to him. I forgot my belt on the way here. So you all have already done an incredible job of serving me with my many needs. But what do you do? How do you serve people who don't need you. When I was there preaching in New York, I felt like the people I was speaking to didn't need me. People didn't need me to talk about race. They didn't need me to really teach them anything. Do we have any student missionaries in the house? I guess they're all gone, right? They're all... Any former student missionaries? Okay, all right. I see a few. What other service opportunities do we have on campus? What other volunteer projects are going on? There's the Christmas Behind Bars, discipleship groups. What else? I'm sure there's Sabbath afternoon program. Service Sabbath? Service Sabbath. Love that. When I was here, there were free clinics. A lot of the PT students got involved in free clinics. There's a lot of different ways to serve, right? When I was at Andrews, I got involved in as many of these as I could. I was a student missionary for a year, teaching English overseas. I got involved in some of the Sabbath afternoon activities. And then when I graduated, I moved overseas for a few more years as well, to keep on serving people whose needs I could clearly identify. Helping people with needs is something that the church has always been pretty good at. Helping the poor, the disenfranchised. This is something that the church has always been pretty good at. There's a really good book called Seeking the Sanctuary. Has anyone read this? Sociological study of the Adventist church, written by Keith Lockhart and Malcolm Bull. And they note this. They note that the Adventist church specifically is really good at serving people. It's really good at helping people gain upward mobility. People come into the church maybe struggling financially, maybe struggling with health, maybe struggling with family issues or needing a social network. And the church does a really, really good job of educating people, teaching people how to be healthy, helping people make a living. But the authors of this book, Seeking a Sanctuary, they also noted something that they called the revolving door syndrome. The revolving door is where after a few generations, people that have come into the church, they've gained an education, they've gotten good jobs, they've gained a comfortable life, and then a few generations in, people tend to leave. Because the needs that originally brought them into the church, and sure, there were spiritual needs, I'm sure, other needs as well, but some of the needs that brought them into the church have been met, have been filled. And so they leave. And I don't want to fault the people that leave. I think there's actually something that we can learn from them. The church is effective at serving people who need a social safety net. But how do we serve people who don't need money or education or medical care? The university's motto, right, is world changers made here. World changers made here. Just by attending college, you are putting yourself in a position where you're going to be walking in the proverbial halls of power. This is something that really hit me. When I was at Andrews, I had a lot of opportunities to serve people that had very clear needs. But what I found when I left Andrews was actually that I was surrounded by a lot of people who didn't need anything. In fact, there were people that had maybe gone to more prestigious schools than I had, if that's even possible. Right? There were people that made more money than I did. There were people that, this might be a weird thing to say, but maybe had a healthier family than I did. And yet they had no connection to my church or my faith. And so I found myself surrounded by people that didn't seem to need me. So how do you provide world-changing, how do you change the world? How do you provide world-changing service to people that don't seem to need you? I want to look at Philippians 2. Philippians 2, 5 through 8. It's a story. It's not a story. It's a message written by Paul. And it teaches us something really beautiful. So Paul's story is incredible, okay? Right? So he goes to great lengths in Philippians to teach us something. And it's because it means something to him. So in Philippians, he uses everything. He uses prayer. If you read through Philippians, he uses exhortation. He uses theology. And he draws a lot from his own personal experience in order to illustrate one key point. And that's Philippians 2, 5 through 8. If you see in your Bible, you might see that it turns into poetry. So he's really emphasizing this point. He says, your attitude should be the same as that of Christ Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, and being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on a cross. For some reason, this text meant a lot to Paul. Jesus' incarnation was actually key to Paul's experience. Okay? Paul describes himself as someone who was, as an apostle, abnormally born. Because he didn't actually meet Jesus before the crucifixion and the resurrection. He met Jesus while he was on his way to do something very different. Everything had already passed. The resurrection had happened, and Paul was not happy about it. He didn't believe it. He was, you know this story, right? He was persecuting the church. Before his name was Paul, what was his name? Saul. He had a different identity. He had a different life purpose. He was doing everything that he could to destroy these Christians. And then on the road to Damascus, two things happen. First of all, he comes for the first time face to face with Jesus. He encounters Jesus Christ. Kind of like in the scripture is the last recorded instance of this, right? He describes it in 1 Corinthians 15, I think. So he encounters Christ, and then something else happens. He's blinded. He goes to stay at a house of someone to try to recover. And a man named Ananias is given a vision and told to go to him. And he goes to him, and he heals him. His vision is restored. So Saul, who then became Paul, knew the importance of receiving help. He knew the importance of receiving from the people that he was trying to change. Paul realized something. He realized that the context for one-way influence is limited. The times when that works are actually very few. It's limited to when the people need you for your money, or your power, or your brains. But the moment you start dealing with people who don't need you for one of these things, influence will either go both ways or no way at all. And here's where I want to say something that might sound scary. But if you want to change the world, and I want to suggest if you want to change the world as Jesus changed it, if you want to change the world through service, and if you want that change to apply to everyone, not only people that need your money or an education or health care, if you want to change the world like Jesus did through service, you're going to have to let the world change you. That's scary to say that. It's scary to imagine getting into a mutual give and take relationship with someone that you know believes different things than you, has different values than you, has different goals and motives than you. But I think this is why Paul emphasized this aspect of Jesus so much. He says, being in very nature God, Jesus did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on a cross. The incarnation mattered to Paul because Paul knew the impact that it had on his own life. He knew the power of give and take. Even to the point where Paul, in 1 Corinthians 9, 22, he says, I have become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some. If you want to change the world through service, rather than through domination or force, if you want to violently take over the world, you don't have to change. You can impose your will. But if you want to change the world through service the way Jesus did, it requires letting the world change you back. And here's why this works, okay? I talked about how people don't have needs, don't need you. That's not entirely true. There is one need that everyone has, no matter how much money you have, no matter how much health you have. That's human connection. And it's not only their need, it's your need also. We all share the need for human connection. Look to your left real quick for me. Look to your left. Look to your right. Okay? Hopefully you've seen at least 3 people. If this congregation is representative at all of America, then 2 of the 3 of you are lonely. A study came out just a few years ago that showed that 63% of young adults are seriously lonely. Does that sound accurate? And so Vivek Murthy, the Vice Admiral, the former Surgeon General, he wrote that loneliness has the same health impact on people as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's as bad for you, shortens your lifespan, hurts you as much as a heavy smoking habit. Human connection is vital, and here's the thing. We, as a country, especially as young adults, are starving of this need. So I did a little campus ministry. When I was in New York, I worked for Advent Collegiate at Columbia and NYU. And one of the things that we did was we called it First Fridays. It was an open mic. And some wild things happened. Have any of you ever been to an open mic? Yeah. Maybe a few of you. Is that David? Yo! Hey, good to see you. David has been to these First Friday open mics that I'm talking about. We gotta connect after this service. Wild things happen when you give the mic to anybody. It's scary to do. We did these events in New York City, open to the public, for college students. So we had college students coming in that had never stepped foot in a church before, that had never visited us before, didn't have relationships with any of us. But they came because it was an open mic and they had something they wanted to share. And it was hard figuring out how this worked, and we made some mistakes. But what I ended up learning was that service could look like listening. For people who are lonely or who don't feel like they have a voice or are looking for a place to share their gifts and talents, service can look like receiving what they have to share, allowing them to speak to and to, in some way, influence and change you. I don't think there's any greater respect you can give someone than listening to them and allowing them to affect you. And that's a scary thing to do, but I think the gospel enables us to do it. Some people get the gospel, right? And it makes their life worse. It makes them more scared, more fearful, more careful. There's a thing called, I wasn't going to bring this up. There's like a form of OCD, scrupulosity, a moral OCD. And some people, they get faith and then fall into this moral OCD. And instead of their life becoming more free and richer, instead of having more confidence and faith and peace in God, some people find themselves more stressed and more worried about doing the right thing and getting it right. But I don't think that's the gospel, right? And so if this gospel really can free you, can provide security to you, then actually you, of anyone in the world, are in a better place to listen, to serve people by allowing them to talk and to share. So we did this open mic, and we had people coming from all over. We had Buddhists, Muslims, Jews, all different atheists of different faiths and no faith, coming into a church and sharing stories and songs that were meaningful to them. And some of them came back, and actually came back over and volunteered and got involved. And I'm not in New York anymore, but I still keep in touch. And it was all because we gave them the opportunity to impact us. So here's my invitation to you. In the same way that God gave us the opportunity to impact Him, becoming human, becoming a servant, dying. In the same way that Paul learned from this and insisted that he could become all things to all people. My invitation to you is to open yourself to the person that you want to serve. Whether there's someone that has it all together or someone that has some obvious, clear need, allow that person to be seen as a child of God with worth and meaning as valid as your own. Expect to learn from them as much as you expect to give. And you might find that in serving, you even learn to love your own God better. Thank you.